This is employing and deploying the business model canvas. This is a Think Big series by the L Space, the Learning Space, an initiative by BinaPavo. So with me today, I have Mr. Prasad Hanif, and I will pass it to him to introduce himself and start the session. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leilanie, for that introduction. And first of all, I'd like to express my appreciation and gratitude to BinaPavo for organizing this Think Big series. I think it's a wonderful session for us to keep on sharing during these trying times, right? And I believe that if you're already here, that's a fantastic, huge step forward, actually. And I'll explain to you why. Now, my name is MOHD PRASAD BIN HANIF. I started off a little bit on my background. I started off as an engineer, right? I was in the manufacturing and the engineering, and then I went into project engineering and consultancy. Then I left engineering altogether to go into investment management for an international company. So I was traveling around the world doing mergers, acquisitions, doing investments and whatnot. Then I joined the government sector to do policy on entrepreneur development and human capital development for Malaysia. So that was quite an interesting experience, but that is the one that jived with me the most. And today I'm here essentially, my career just spun off into, developing entrepreneurs, doing human capital, because that's where my biggest passion lies after so many years of looking for that particular point of passion. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit of my background. Currently, I am the Secretary General of the Association Development Finance Institutions Malaysia. You might not have heard of it. If you do, fantastic. It is an association of development finance institutions, Bank Rakyat, Bank Simpanan Nasional, and many other DFIs, as well as MARA, PNB, PNS. So they're in that association. I'm in the board of that association. I'm also the Secretary General. And I'm also a shareholder in Darul Haq Global Ventures, Berhad, also a director in a few other companies as well. So that's currently what I'm doing. Quite busy, but can't go anywhere except staying at home. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we got a very short and sweet session this morning, and I have a few slides prepared. They're pretty extensive slides, but we are going to just touch base on how it's going to affect us this morning, right? So let's go to the title of our talk today is employing and deploying the business model canvas. So I'm going to touch on two things. Number one, I'm going to touch on growth, and secondly, I'm going to talk about business model. If you may go to the first slide, Doctor. Now, why am I talking about growth before I talk about business model? Yes. So I got Dr. Leilanie helping me now. All right. So let's talk about the growth mindset. Now, I'll explain to you why I'm starting off this talk today with the growth mindset. Growth mindset, essentially good energy and getting out of the comfort zone, is the first sign of possible success. What it means is essentially, if you are moving towards success, or you're moving towards solving a problem, the first thing that you need to do is to have energy and getting out of the comfort zone. Now that's very, very essential. Now you are a group of people who want to learn, and since you are now already either successful or you're planning to be successful, you are already here, and that's why you'll be more successful. Taking the first step to get out of the comfort zone is by learning what is your comfort zone, what is that particular border that that stops you. Next slide, please, Doctor. Now, if you want a nice, quiet life, growth is not what you want. Growth is anything but quiet. Many people have ambitions, but they do not have the drive, the why that forces you to make that choice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is the why that is making us grow today? COVID-19, right? Essentially, COVID-19 has forced us, either you grow, you change, you adapt, and you improvise, or you get left behind. That's essentially the choices in front of us. Now, if I would have started this BMC saying that, hey, we need to embrace we need to brace for the impact of post-COVID-19, right? But that's a very negative way of thinking it. The way that I would like to think of it is embracing the changes, which means that we have to have a growth mindset, right? If we don't have a growth mindset, everything that we're going to be thinking about from here onward is going to be on the negative side. This is not going to work, that's not going to work. Everything that we see is going to be on a negative light. So that's why before we even look at the BMC, we have to have a growth mindset, meaning that we are going to use post COVID-19, whatever the situation is, whatever the environment is, whatever the business environment is, we are going to use it as a catalyst to change our business. It is not something that's going to stop us. It's not going to something that's going to hinder us. As a matter of fact, we have to change our perception that this post-COVID-19 business environment is going to catalyst our business further. That's the mindset that I like everyone to be in before we start talking about business on canvas. Because right now there's so many negativity going on, like there's people are talking about recession, people are talking about 58% of CEOs surveyed globally are saying that, hey, if we want to go back to the pre-COVID-19, it's going to take up till 2022, which is 2 years down the road. And a lot of us don't have that much of money to sustain up till 2022. So we are all kind of, in a very negative mood. So I want to get rid of that first, right? We have to be in a growth mindset. We have to take post-COVID-19 environment as a new environment that is going to grow and catalyze our business. So this is something very, very important, because there's going to be a lot of, especially if you're entrepreneurs, there's going to be a lot of people saying that this is not going to happen, this is not going to happen, this what the economy is going to shrink, and you're going to lose your job, and etc. It's a very, very negative stuff, right? So we need to be in the right mindset. So let's proceed. Going into growth, right? During this post-COVID-19, there are 3 ways for us to grow. Number one, well, actually not just post-COVID-19, in any situations that you're facing, right? There are only 3 ways to grow your business. Number one, you increase your clients, increase the average transaction value per client, increase the frequency of repurchase. Now, this is something that I just wanted to throw in there so that people take note of this, but I'm not going to go into detail of this because, we've got very, very limited time, right? So just take that. And if we do have time, some other sessions, we could probably talk about this in further detail. But let's go into the BMC, right? Now, next slide, please, Doctor. Essentially, the BMC, the business model canvas, is essentially our way of looking at the entire business in one particular canvas. It just gives us an overall picture of how our business is going to relate to each other, how our business compartments is going to relate to each other, and it gives us an overall view of what the industry is going to react to us as well. Now let's look at the next. Can you press next? Okay, so the BMC has 9 building blocks. Essentially, if you can divide that into 2, on the right hand side you will have value proposition, customer relationship, customers, revenue, and channels. Now these are the key blocks that actually help you to earn money, right? And on the left hand side you're going to have key activities, key partners, costs, key resources. These are the things that are going to make you spend money, right? So if you are good at increasing the revenue, increasing the making everything that's making you money efficient, at the same time everything that's making you spend your money much more efficient, then you will have a bigger profit. That's essentially what it means, right? So let's go to the first value proposition. Now, if we were to talk about BMC, it is almost impossible for me. I mean, not almost, it is impossible for us to talk about BMC within 30 minutes, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on what is going to happen post COVID-19, how you're going to employ BMC to cater for your post COVID-19 deployment. Now, the first thing in a business model canvas that you have to look at is the value proposition. Value proposition is essentially, what are you offering? Now, we don't want to talk about what product you're offering. What we want to talk about is what are the features of the products and services that you're offering. For example, if you're selling cake, everybody sells cake, but what are the features of your cake that makes you distinct from everybody else? What is the value from your cake? You know, for example, if people are used to selling triple layer cheesecake, you might be selling 6-layer cheesecake, right? Which is, I know I've never seen one before, but which could be unique in itself. Now, why do I start with value proposition? It's quite straightforward. Your value proposition, you have to look at your value proposition pre-COVID-19, and you got to look at your value proposition post-COVID-19. Let me give you an example. Say you had a restaurant, right? Say you were running a restaurant, a cafe, right? And the cafe's value proposition was essentially to create a romantic ambience for visitors that come to our cafe. So that's your value proposition. It's a romantic ambience. Yeah, it's mostly catered towards you know, couples, right? So if that is your value proposition pre-COVID-19, for the next 2 years, right, during the post-COVID-19 period where we're recovering, you have to look at the business environment. Are people still afraid to go to restaurants? Are people still willing to come to the restaurants? If they're not, how are you going to change your value proposition? Or you need to reconsider whether you want to add another value proposition. Take the romance to your house, right? You know, you can offer romantic dinner services at houses, you know, like it's kind of like a catered romantic dinner services. Now, these are some things that you can think about. So you have to look at whether your value proposition is still valid. Your value proposition, is it still relevant post COVID-19 for you to survive for the next 2 years? Now you have to look at that. Now, in the training industry, let's just take one of the businesses that I'm in. In the training industry, you can see there's so many people right now that are on webinars. They're doing different types of sessions and whatnot. What happened? They're actually pivoting. Before this, it was always training face-to-face. It was always training GLC. Now, the training industry is pivoting towards, hey, look, let's do more public events, let's share more, right? And the value proposition has already changed offline to online, and soon it'll be both online and offline mixture. So you have to look at where your value proposition is. Next slide, Doctor, please. Now, this is the value proposition canvas. I'm not going to go through this, but essentially the question that you need to answer is that pre-COVID-19, you might have asked why they would want to buy from you. You have to ask that question again post-COVID-19. Why would anybody want to come to your place? Now, I went to a barber shop a couple of weeks ago, right? And I recommended that barber shop to a lot of my friends. Why? Because they followed the SOP to the T, right? They had their face mask on, they had that, you know, space suit on and whatever, you know, they had the entire works going for them, right? And people felt just so comfortable going to that barber, right? And you know, that's very, very comforting. So they created the why would people want to go to their barber, right? So I can see a huge queue in front of that barber shop compared to all the other barber shops in my town here, right? So you need to look back at this question: why would they want to come? Why would they want to get your products pre-COVID-19, post-COVID-19? Because the answers pre-COVID-19 might be different from post-COVID-19, so you need to look at that as well, right? One example is the barbershop that I mentioned earlier. Now, next slide, please, Doctor. I'm not gonna go into this, right? You need to look at the think strategy, what is the disruptive design and whatnot, right? I'm not gonna go details into this. This is just something for you to know that you need to actually sit down and think about this, right? It's not something that, well, not just sit down and think about this, but you gotta throw out some of your ideas to your friends. You can consult with the BinaPavo to talk to them. You know, like you look, you know, my family has been doing this business up till post COVID-19, you know, like up till COVID-19, this is the way that we've been doing business, and we've been doing this business for the last 50 years. But because of COVID-19, everything went down, right? So you know, you talk to people, you know, you talk to consultants like BinaPavo and whatnot, right, to see what are the other strategies that you can imply in terms of, you know, delivering your value, right? So this is essentially a slide for you to look at, but I can't go through it very detailed right now. So the next slide, please, Doctor. Now, we talked about value proposition, right? We talked about value proposition. Now we have to look at the customer segments. Now, there's a reason why I look at value proposition first, and then we look at customer segments, because both of these have to match. If you could have the greatest you know, value proposition, but if the customer segments are not interested, you're not going to be able to sell as well, right? So again, the question is, what has changed? Customer segments before pre-COVID-19, customer segments post-COVID-19, right? Now let's look at the case of the barber just now, right? Post-COVID, pre-COVID-19, anybody just walk in, you know, people can just you know, go ahead and you know, get their haircut. It's very straightforward. Post-COVID-19, customer segments have changed. What has changed? People are more fearful about places that are crowded. People are a lot more fearful. I mean, people are not very keen on lining up, right? They don't want very long lines. So barbers that can adapt to this will get the most custom segments. You agree? That's number one. Another customer segments that, ladies and gentlemen, has already shifted so big is the customer segments that are going online. During the first MCO, right? During the first tight MCO, first and second MCO, people couldn't leave their houses, right? So a lot of people started ordering online. You know, they started ordering everything from groceries to food to you know, Lazada and Grab just had a boost in sale. Everybody was just going online. Now, latest research shows that even older people who were a lot more, how you say, hesitant towards going online, you know, those who were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s are now purchasing online as well. That segment market has shifted. Will that impact your business? If they are going online, I mean, I've seen during the last 2, 3 weeks, even durians are being sent to your homes. That's how that's how amazing it is. You know, I ordered durian from Rao through just a few WhatsApp, right? So you can imagine how connected we have become within the last few weeks, right? So this is something that you need to look at. You have to ask yourself whether is your customer segment still the same, right? And if your customer segments are not the same anymore, you have to change your value proposition. So these are two related things. So you will have your value proposition coming on, right? You'll create your value proposition. Then you look at your customer segments. If your customer segments have really changed in terms of your buying behavior, right? Especially their buying behavior, you know, like they're no more, you know, like I'll give you an example. My mother, she's 75 years old, right? She used to like to go to Indian restaurants, to mama restaurants, and eat and come back. But right now, she's just so comfortable taking Food Panda. I mean, I'm not advertising for Food Panda, but she just takes the app from Food Panda and just orders. 75 years old, she's just capable of doing that already, right? Because the apps are so easy to use. So, are they moving away, right? So these are some things. And just to highlight, my uncles are restaurant owners, mama restaurants lah, as usual, right? So my uncles are restaurant owners. I can see the difference. A few of my generation, you know, like my uncles are restaurant owners. Then my generation, my cousins took over the restaurants, right? So my cousins who took over the restaurants, right, they pivoted during the MCO and went online. They registered with Food Panda, they registered with Grab Food, and they were operating phenomenally throughout the MCO. While my older generations, right, just remained as they were, and they were looking at, they were facing a lot of hardships as well. So look at your customer segments have changed, so you have to look at whether it's still relevant to your particular operations. Now let's go to the next slide, please. Customer segments, again, you have to look at different values of your customers, right? Now when we talk about it, usually when we look at customer segments, what we usually look at is, the age, demographics. Usually we focus on demographics, which is age, married or not married, where they're located. These are things that we commonly segmentize our customers. But we need to go a little bit one step further. Common behaviors, we need to look at the behavior, the mood of the segments as well. Right now, there's a lot of let's just take the training industry. There's a lot of fear, even though the COVID-19 disease has already been under control, and there's a lot of SOPs in place, and it's relatively safe, but still the fear is still there. The fear of coming, it's irrational. Sometimes it's well, I can't call it irrational, but to a certain extent it could be called that, irrational fear, right? So the fear might still be there, and it will still stop people from buying, right? So how would you want to increase your value proposition so you can convince them to buy? So these are conscious decisions that you must take, which segments to serve and which segments to ignore. Some segments you really definitely need to ignore, but because you just can't penetrate at this point, at least, right? So these are things that you need to focus on. The next, please. Channels. Now, I mentioned briefly earlier about channels. One of the channels is, of course, online. We're talking about, training industry has moved very quickly, right? From offline, previously I didn't have on my Facebook feed any webinars or any, posters on online, training courses. I never had those. But right now I have one every day. There's one person giving webinars, there's another person giving online training, there's another person just posting tips, various types of tips for them to, for entrepreneurs to learn from. Now you can see that the channels have changed. It was always offline before this, now it has gone to online. So you need to check back. Now, one of the things that you need to look at, channels that we will talk about, we'll touch a little bit on this as well a little bit later, is your supply chain as well, right? So one of your channels, right, is for example, if you are delivering products, right, from A to B, and you got people that are actually delivering those products, right? What happens to them during the MCO? What happened to your delivery during the MCO? Would they stop? Did anything happen to them? So what are the mitigation things that you're going to take because of this, right? And we will talk about that during our discussion in the strategic partners. Now, you have to reanalyze again your channels, right? Whether your customer segments that we talked about are now more privy to, technology. If they are more inclined towards technology, maybe the way that you can increase your reach towards your customers is through online, maybe, right? So you need to look at, again, the question is always the same. What was your channels pre-COVID-19? What is the most suitable channels to reach your customer segments, like I mentioned earlier, based on their behavior, based on their mood, based on how they're going to consume? What has changed, right? Now, like for myself, right, the reason I ordered durian from Raup online was because, hey, look, before this, I'll be very honest, I would go hunting for Musang King durians in Raup. Physically, I'll just take my car and I'll drive all the way up to Raup, right, from Kuala Lumpur all the way up to Raup, buy the durian Musang King, and then come back. right? And then we enjoy the fruit. That has changed. That changed because of COVID-19. I was thinking, okay, I don't think it's necessary for me to take that risk. I'll just pay an extra $20 for them to deliver direct to my house. My behavior, my consumption of durian musangking didn't change even because of post COVID-19. Understand that, right? I'm still eating. Before COVID-19, I was eating durian musangking. After COVID-19, I'm still gonna eat durian musangking. But the thing that has changed is essentially how I get it, right? Now, one of my friends actually has COD for durian king. I mean, durian musang king. So obviously, that is a pivot. So you have to look at that channel of delivering your product. All right. So those are some of the questions that need to ask. Next, please. These are some of the examples, right? Okay. So you can talk to BinaPavo and you can talk to a lot of other consultants as well. A very, very important question that you need to ask yourself. Your physical sales force, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Even myself, for me to get appointments with a lot of my stakeholders, it's difficult. A lot of my stakeholders are in their 60s, 70s. If they want to avoid Zoom meeting, they'll avoid Zoom meeting because they are very comfortable face to face, right? But then again, they think twice of meeting someone face to face because of the fear of COVID-19. So that's a challenge on its own. So what would your sales force do? At this point, if you have physical salesmen out there and they are unable to they're unable to approach customers, they're unable to fix meetings, we need to look at how we're going to help to facilitate them, right? And there's very, very many, there are many, many ways to do this, right? You got to talk to, different types of consultants, get their feedbacks and whatnot. We don't have time to go through the details on how you're going to train your salesmen to become, to be able to cope with the COVID-19 as well. So these are things that you need to focus on, things that you can think about, right? Now, next, please, doctor. So these are some things that you need to think about as well. I'm just putting this in. I can't cover all of them, right? But it'll give you some additional, how you say, thought. It'll get you to think a little bit more about your channels. Is your awareness, the way that you're creating awareness, is it still the same pre-COVID, post-COVID? Is the same? If it was just billboards before this, does it make it worthwhile for you to go online? You have to evaluate back your value proposition. I mentioned that earlier. How would your customers purchase now? Because of MCO, people couldn't go to their banks. They usually didn't have cash as well. So a lot of them went into online banking. So what are you doing now, right? Is it necessary for you to go online banking as well? So these are things. Delivery, when your supply chain was not your supply chain, but when your delivery chain, your customers was interrupted, what happened, right? How can you take things to mitigate that risk before it comes again, right? After sales support, has it changed? So these are things that you need to look at. I can give you an example of after sales, right? TM had TM and TNB, I think. Yeah, TM. Let's just take TM. TM stopped all their services during the MCO period, right? You could have a broken. Can you imagine during the MCO period, my fiber optic cable, putus. I mean, it just broke. Fiber optic. I mean, if it was because I have a little bit of I also have a computer engineering degree. If it was a Cat6 cable, I could have fixed it easily. It was a fiber optic cable. You need a $45,000 equipment to connect two fiber optic cables. I don't have that. Right? Can you imagine that? Right? So they closed it. Right? They didn't serve any of these customers. So similarly, if you're doing some sort of service and you couldn't service your customers during that period of time, what are you going to do after this to build back that confidence? Right? You've got to build back that confidence. So what happened was TM. This is wonderful about TM. I'm not promoting TM, but I'm just giving an example of how they could do that. I put in that particular order, right? And the moment there was a slot just a one. If you don't, if you remember, there's just a 1 or 2 days lack that was given by the government, right? On that day, I even forgot about. I mean, it was disastrous living in the house without internet. But when that lack was given, TM was in front of my house trying to fix it, right? So that's the amount of service that you're looking at. Okay. So next, doctor. Now, customer relationship. Okay, this is very, very important. Coming back from that after sales service, right? The reason why you immediately go to that, you immediately follow up on your customer service is essentially for customer relationship. You could not serve your customers for 3 months, right? But people say, out of sight, out of mind, right? And that most likely will happen. If 3 months and you never got in touch with your customers, most likely they've already forgotten about you and moved on, right? And even worse is that they've actually found an alternative. Everybody that went online and you never did, right? So they might have gone online. So that's why it's important for you to create customer relationship. They must always remember you, that you're doing this, right? So whether like right now, if you're still not able to, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of the businesses are already operating, but if you had not kept in touch with your customers, this is very integral for you to get back in touch with them. If you had not given them any services for the last 3 months, just inquire, how is the product working? Is it still okay, right? Is it still running? This customer relationship is very, very important, because in this highly competitive and I would say bearish market that's going to come soon, right? You need to preserve as many customers as you can. You can't afford to lose more customers, right? So whatever customers that you have, you want to make sure that they can keep on returning and returning for your services. So that's some of the things, strategies that you can look at, right? So I've gone through 4, right? Now, I don't intend to go through the entire BMC. I don't think we have time to go through the entire BMC, but we'll see. Doctor? Oh, okay. So we're good? Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Sorry, I muted myself. So yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Complete your BMC.
All right.
Okay.
Fantastic then. Okay. So right now we have looked at 4 key aspects. Number 1 is value proposition. Then we've looked at customer segments. We've looked at channels that you will deliver your value proposition to your customer segments. Then we have looked at the activities that you need for you to maintain customer relationships so that they keep on buying. Remember, it's always cheaper to maintain the customer than to get new customers. That's very, very key right there, right? So these 4 things is expected to generate for you revenue. Now we're going to talk about I think the next slide is revenue, if I'm mistaken. Okay, so let's just go through this. Yeah, revenue. Okay, revenue. Let's talk about revenue. Okay. Now, the reason why I talk about revenue immediately after these 4 is that you have to look at what is your revenue stream, right? Now, if you're running a business and you've always been an offline business, right? And you've always been an offline business. Once you go online, you've got 2 revenue streams already, right? And if your business is going to be highly affected during this next 2 years, but it has potential to say boom after 2022, when people's fears are gone, it has that potential. You might also want to look at, hey, look, do I need to look at other revenue streams as well, right? For example, I'll give an example. My own business was essentially training and consultancy, right? And we found that even though we are capable of paying salaries up till November, December, right? Still, we found that we were very, very adversely affected, even though we had online trainings and whatnot, right? So what we did was, hey, look, we've got some extra cash. Why not diverse that into something else, right? So we started opening up, we started to buy land for us to develop. That's complete diversification into a different industry altogether, right? And we're also looking at a new F&B industry as well, right? So that's diversification altogether. So you want to come back to revenue stream. Even though that's a complete diversification, that does not necessarily have to be the rule of thumb. It could also be a slight diversification, like before this you were offline only, now you're going to be offline and online. You're going to add a little bit of additional services, you know, these kind of things that you can add on to your current revenue streams. The point that I'm trying to make is that you got to look at your revenue, okay, and where they're coming from, and see if you can diversify this revenue so that whether it's a bullish market or whether it's a bearish market, you're always making money, right? So that's something that, now I'll be very frank, we did not expect COVID-19. I think nobody expected COVID-19 to happen, and MCO happened, you know, everybody just got a huge slap across their faces, right? And we all had to adjust, right? So we all had that coming to us as well, right? So even myself, we were surprised as well when COVID-19 happened. You know, a lot of our training programs were canceled. We didn't have any income, right? We had to use our, you know, how you say, we have to use our reserves to pay for the salaries and whatnot, right? So I think a lot of businesses are facing that as well, right? But that should not be taken as negative. It's a die all situation. There's something to learn from that, right? Meaning that we are not prepared for every situation. That's what it really essentially means, right? It's not enough that we have, oh, look, you got MCO, so yeah, we still have money for us to sustain until December, everything will be going back to normal. That is what we call complacency. What we need to think is that, hey, look, if this happens again, if we have a second wave of COVID-19 next year, May, I mean, God forbid, right? If we do have it, what happens then, right? So we need to diversify. So that's the position we took, right? My business took. So you need to look at what is the position that your business will need to look as well, right? So you need to look at what has changed before pre-COVID-19 in terms of your revenue streams and what has changed after, right? And a lot of people who were online, they would have seen a huge peak on their online businesses, right? And then the market segment has shifted, and you have to look at the demographics of those using online services. Can we go to the next one? Now, these are the types of revenue streams you can look at, right? Again, right, asset sale, right? We're talking about liquidity of your assets, right? Liquefying your assets, right? But sometimes, you know, this should, for me at least, right? For me at least, you know, whenever people suggest liquefying your assets, you need to look at other options first, right? Assets is usually there, right, when you're in an emergency situation, right? So you have to look at other ways of creating your revenue streams. Now, I can give you another example of what I advise one of my clients is that, you know, they had a three-story business. It was a kitchen renovation. It was a kitchen renovation business, right? So they had a three-story building, right? So they were running out of money and etc. etc. You know what happened during COVID-19, right? So I told them 3 stories of building is not required for 8 staff. You agree? I don't think so, right? So what I told them is that what's key is for you to have a showroom for people to see your work, right? And one administrative. If you can combine that within a same floor space, you can rent out the other 2, right? So this is what I mean by, you know, instead of selling your assets, you are actually generating extra revenue streams from the asset that you already own. So right now, what they've done in the last couple of months is that they've actually moved all their staff down to the ground floor along with the kitchen showroom, and they've rented out the 2nd and the 3rd floor. Now they're making additional money on top of what their earlier revenue stream was. So it doesn't really have to mean that you have to create a new, in order for you to get more revenue stream, doesn't mean that you have to create new value proposition, you have to do the entire customer segmentation again. No, it's not necessary. You have to look at what are the resources you have, what are the things that you have might not have been fully efficiently been using, and see if you can turn it into revenue streams, right? So these are things that you have to talk. Now, I'll give you an advice, and this is a very, very important advice, right? No matter what I talk today, At the end of the day, if you're going to sit down and think for yourself, it's going to be very, very hard. Get a consultant, get a coach to sit down with you. The reason is we have been going on autopilot whenever we're running our business, right? Somebody has to come in and switch off that autopilot, right? Somebody has to come in and reset our thinking and get it back on track to analyze every assumption that you've made, right? Before this, we might have made assumptions that, hey, look, everything will be good. You just didn't realize that we made that assumption, right? So we need someone to come in and tell us, hey, look, why are you thinking that it will go, it'll go better after this, right? Somebody has to ask that question, right? Otherwise, oh yeah, what I would call, we would be going into a false positive state. False positive state is that, you are so confident with yourself and yourself that you look at everything so positively that nothing can go wrong. What happens is that you take unnecessary risks and your risk management just goes out of the window, right? So you need someone to come in and question your risks, question your assumptions, right? This is very integral, right, during this time. So these are some of the other revenue streams that you can look at, right? So let's go to the next slide. I'm not going to go through this, so you can look at this. So let's look at the revenue streams of the big 5 tech companies, right? Now, you might have heard within the last couple of days, at least last Friday, people were talking about, Apple, Microsoft were being, and Alphabet were among the, surefire stocks in the US, right? And this is the reason, right? Because they've got multiple revenue streams, right? So they're always being, no matter how they're being affected, they're always making money. That's one of the reasons why, they're prime pick stocks, right? So same as our company as well. If we want to grow our company, we have to look at what are the revenue streams that are coming into our company as well, right? So hopefully my company, we're building our company now. We've thought about it, right? We're building our company, not only training consultancy, we're going to go into food, we're going to go into agriculture, etc., etc. as well. So those are things that you need to look at as well. Next slide, please. Now, so another revenue streams. I'm not going to go through this as well, but this is something that you can look at, your pricing, whether it's going to be fixed pricing or whether it's going to be dynamic pricing, right? And next, please. Now, key resources. Now, this is very, very important, right? What are the key resources that you need for you to adjust and deliver your value proposition, right? So key resources. Of course, your manpower, right? Some of our businesses had to let go of manpower, right? That's because of our shortage of money or whatnot, right? So what type of manpower do we need now in this new era, right? What are the very integral manpowers that we need, right? For example, if you look at the banking industry, they need what? Cyber security. Cybersecurity has become #1 in the banking industry right now, and they're very, very focused on that. Things have changed. What are the types of manpower that you need in this new post-COVID-19 era, right? As opposed to previously. Everybody wants to do online, right? How would your poster viral? How would your poster get more attention compared to others? These are things that you need to consider. So in order for you to make that happen, you need someone specifically to focus on creating eye-catching posters. So these are things that you need to look at that as well. Now, how about your distribution channel? How about your what resources do you need to deliver your value in terms of, how you say, customer relationships, right? Before this, if you never had someone to give a call to every one of your customers, you need one, right? So these are something that you need to look at. So key resources are very, very important. You need to look at what are the things, what are the key resources you had before COVID-19, and what are the key resources you are going to need post COVID-19 as well, right? So next slide, please. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. All right, so there are many key resources, physical key resources, like do you need, like just now I mentioned to you about one of my clients, kitchen decor. Do they need really 3 floors of space? No, they did not. So you need to look at key resources. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to add on to your key resources. Sometimes you just need to reduce your key resources. Might have been you've been using it in a wasteful manner, so you need to go into savings mode and let it go, right? So these are things that you can look at. Next, please. Intellectual key resources. Right now, intellectual resources are difficult to develop, but once you are able to develop that intellectual resource, it can be of substantial value. Now, you might be asking, what in the world do you mean by intellectual resource? The BinaPavo is an intellectual resource. Believe that? It is. It is. It helps you to check your assumptions. They will give you tools, right? I'm not promoting BinaPavo, but this is the essence of it. This is the essence of it, right? They will give you tools on making decisions, right? They will guide you on how to question your own assumptions. These are intellectual resources for you to go through this post COVID-19 period. So it's very important. There are a lot of tools. Now I will be very honest with you. I consider myself a coach, right? I consider myself a business coach, right? Doctor, huh? I consider myself a business coach. I have my training and consultancy business. I'm Secretary General of ADFIM, etc., etc. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a coach. I did not go into multiple revenue streams by thinking it on my own. The idea did not came to me. The only thing I was thinking at that point was like, I'm gonna run out of money in 6 months. Where am I gonna get that money? That's the only thought that was going on through my head, right? Until I got a coach. That coach came in. Okay, let's analyze our options. Went through the entire keys. We went through the entire tools, right? And we questioned our assumptions, right? And that helped us to get clarity on the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, that's essentially what we want, right? An outside view for us to be able to think objectively and clearly, right? I was very hesitant. I'll be very frank. I was hesitant to diversify into any other industry except training and consultancy, right? Why? Because of somebody has to come to me and say, hey, look, it's irrational fear, right? It's something that the only reason you want training, during that period of time, I found out about myself as well. The reason I'm hesitant to go into other industry wasn't because I was not good at the other industry. It's because that my passion was training and consultancy. That's the only reason that was stopping me, right? And somebody had to come and talk to us for us to be able to understand that, hey, look, you don't have to give up your passion. Your passion can still always be there, but this is actually business continuity management. So this is how they do it. So these are some of the examples. Next slide, please, Doctor. Now, this is another example as well. Every enterprise requires human resources, but people are particularly prominent in certain business model. So you have to look at what are the key resources. For example, let's just take training and consultancy, right? People is very, very key in training and consultancy industry, right? But if you're in the automation industry, people might not be. Well, not the quantity of people, but the quality of people in your industry might be very, very key, right? So you have to look at that as well, right? Next slide, please. Okay. Some business models call for financial resources, financial guarantees such as cash, lines of credit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important. If you're running a business in the post-COVID-19, the government is giving out, I would call, free money. It's not really free, but it's somewhat free money, right? The reason why it's free money is essentially, for example, let's just take the moratorium for 6 months. It frees up cash for consumers for 6 months, meaning that they will have additional cash in their hands for them to spend, right? Similarly, for businesses as well, you will have, if you had loan before this, you had 6 months of moratorium from the government, you have extra cash. Question is, what are you going to do with the extra cash? That's very, very important question, right? If you're going to just take this cash and then you're going to plug in another hole, it's not going to work, right? So it'll just be a very vicious cycle. So you need to look at what you're going to use that money for, right? On top of that, there's a lot of government loans, especially from Agrobank, SME Bank. You've got Bank National for bigger contract grants projects. You've got Bank Pembangunan Malaysia, right, that are offering very, very low rate loans, right? So you can actually look at that as well. And you can also explore, if you don't have any guarantees, you don't have any assets to pledge, etc., you can go to CGC, Credit Guarantee Company, Credit Guarantee Corporation. They help entrepreneurs to guarantee for them at the public, at the banks, commercial as well as DFIs. So you can look at that as well. Now, entrepreneurs have to look at key resources, and one of the key resources, finance. We're not just talking about money, we're talking about all the options that are available out there. So you need to look at that as well. Okay, next please. Okay, so the key resources. Now we have to look at the key activities. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of key activities that we need to look at, right? And we have to analyze what are the key activities that are going to help us to deliver our value proposition to our customer segments. Now let's just look at some of the examples. Microsoft, their business model is a software maker, and their key activity is software development. Now, for any reason, if they were to cut down on their software development, what do you think will happen to Microsoft? Bungkus lah, right? So you need to know what is the key activity that helps you to deliver your customers. Now, let's just take air conditioning services, right? And this is the thing. You get very, very good servicemen in your employment, right? And they deliver very good customers and whatnot, but you're not willing to pay them. Neither are you willing to keep them. What happens is they leave, right? Essentially, you, even though they come and ask for you the additional pay and whatnot, right? But you're not managing the key people, the key activity that's actually helping you to generate that money, right? By not managing this very, very skillful and good people, right? Instead, what we do is that we look at, everything else. We're looking at how to, the key activities on how to make sure that our delivery vans are serviced, our tires are fully pumped, right? Instead of looking at the people who are actually delivering the value proposition. So you need to look at the key activity, right? And most of us, right, when we have a business, we don't really take the time to look at what is the one thing that you need to protect with everyone, a key activity that you need to protect with everything that you have, right? And if you ask a lot of our customers, a lot of my clients at least, they don't know, right? They don't know what is the key activity they need to protect, right? So what happens is that they focus on something else, right? And when the business goes down, they're still thinking what happened, right? So that's one of the reasons that we need to look at what is the key activity. Now, this is an example. McKinsey is a consultancy. Their key activity is problem solving. In order for them to solve problems, they need to get what type of resources? Very, very intelligent personnel, right? Very intelligent consultants, very creative consultants, right? So that is one of their key resources they require. Once you focus on your key activity at problem solving, and you focus and you combine that with key resources of very highly intelligent, highly motivated, creative consultants, what you're going to get is you're able to deliver your value proposition of any solution to any problem to your customer segments. So that's essentially what it means. Okay, so let's look at the next item. We're gonna what is the key activity of Manchester United? Let's anybody wanna give a guess? What is the key activity of Manchester United? Can anybody say? Anybody want to share in the chat? Tell me, what do you think it is? What do you think is the key activity of Manchester United? Right? Let me explain. Anybody? Ada ke?
Everybody is muted now.
Oh, ada. Playing football. Selling merchandise. What else? What do you think is the key activity of Manchester United? Anybody else? Playing football, okay. Selling merchandise, okay. Anybody else? Any other guess? Let me tell you what it is. Doctor, can we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Oh, let's go to the previous slide again. I didn't include that slide. The key activity of Manchester United, ladies and gentlemen, is entertainment. Entertainment. Can you imagine Manchester United comes in, right? Each side scores 15 goals each. Every other minute they're scoring goals. What happens? What happens? Right? It's going to be a very boring game. And you do that for every game, everybody's going to be bored. They're not going to go to the game, right? What they want is a show. Manchester United puts on a fantastic show on the field. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, is what sells merchandise. That's what creates, like let's just look at CR7, Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Cristiano Ronaldo. The fact that he's a good football, he's a fantastic football player, right? But the fact that people like him is not because he's a great football player, but he puts on a fantastic show when he's on the field, right? Now, can you imagine how would you feel if Cristiano Ronaldo is able to score goals every other minute? You'd be like, okay, first 7 goals, you're like, whoa, and then the next 7 goals, you're gonna be like, what the hell? That's what's gonna happen. It's not a showmanship anymore, right? It's all about the entertainment on the field. You have to really know what is the key activity that you're doing, right? You have to understand your business model itself, right? So Manchester United, Alex Ferguson was very successful. You can Google you can Google this. Alex Ferguson was very successful during his tenure as a manager. Not, I mean, we of course of his leadership and his strategy and whatnot. That's definitely undeniable. But he was very successful because he made Manchester United to be showmen. They went on the field and they played a great game. They showed the world what entertainment was all about on the field itself, and there was a lot of people who loved them, right, for that, and that created a lot of fandom for Manchester United itself, right? So these are things that this is just an example. This is just an example. Jangan marah ya Liverpool, Arsenal fans. Don't be. This is just an example, yeah, right? Okay. So let's go. Key partnership. Just 2 more blocks. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress this particular block enough. You have key resources, you have key activities. In order for you to drive this, right, you are going to need key strategic partners. That's very, very important. You know why you need these key strategic partners? Because during thick and thin, you want them to be there, right? Have you imagined, I'm probably sure that some of you have gone through this during the MCO period. It's like some of your partners were like, okay, I'm just, one of your supply chains were broken because of the MCO, and you can't get your supplies, right? And your supplier just says, hey, look, we'll just wait it out after MCO, then we'll figure it out, right? Wasn't very supportive, right? But if you've taken your supplier as a key strategic partner, meaning that, hey, look, we're in this for the long period of time. We need to be a little, a lot more collaborative, right? Let's look at how we can actually mutually benefit each other, right? And get them as part of your company's ally. So even during MCO, kalau when you're delivering, I am pretty sure if they're key strategic allies, they would come in and they will help you throughout that period as well. I'll tell you, some of my partners during the MCO, they came on board, and we had strategic alliances. They came on board. Hey, look, let's do free training, free, ladies and gentlemen, because they were strategic partners before we even started MCO. They were already our key strategic partners. So when they came on board, hey, look, let's go do this for free for now, right? And I will get my trainers to do this for free. You get your trainers to do this for free, and we all pay our own costs, right? So these are strategic partners. See how we support each other. So during your post COVID-19, you got to look for strategic partners. It's not the more common term that that's more used in the market is the blue ocean strategy, even though it's overly used, right? But it's where you find ways to work together, not only with your suppliers, but also your delivery partners, also your competition. It's time to sit down. You know, if you've got a competition, you know, I mean, you don't want hostile competition right now, right? You want to see how you can, everyone can complement each other and get the big pie together, right? Towards this next 1.5 years that we're going to go through post COVID-19, right? Now, key strategic partners are very, very important for the next few years, right? You got to find, you got to make your suppliers your key strategic partners as well. You got to see, look at your delivery, uh, uh, your key resources, your key activities, see who is running the key activities, right? Who are the people who are looking after your key activities, and make them your strategic partners. Next slide, please, Doctor. So let's look at the types of partnership. You can have strategic alliances between non-competitors. Within competition, you have strategic partners between competitors. Let me just give you an example. This is a fantastic example. We are using Zoom right now. We're using Zoom, right? You know that we have Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is similar to Zoom. You can actually meet online and have online videos and whatnot, right? Microsoft Teams and Zoom are competitors. Agreed? Everybody agrees this. You know, if you don't agree, then you got to go find out a little bit more, right? Zoom and Microsoft Teams are competitions for the same kind of segments, meaning that anybody who needs to do online meetings, they need to choose either Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Now, how does strategic partners between competitors work? What did they do? Zoom guys came in, Microsoft guys came in, and they developed an app that can be used to connect Zoom to Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Teams to Zoom. How amazing is that? Your competition, but they managed to. Why did they do that? Because now people can choose, oh, even if I want to choose Microsoft Teams, I can choose Microsoft Teams. I can still connect to Zoom, and I can still connect to Zoom, Microsoft Teams if I'm using Zoom, right? So now people's fear of choosing has already been reduced, and they will go into technology very, very easy, right? So you need to look at the bigger picture. So these are things that you can look at, right? So I don't want to go deep into that. Next, please. Now, this is the final block, cost structure, right? So you need to look at your business model. Earlier, we've always been, throughout my talk since early this morning, I've been talking about what is the pre-COVID-19 situation and the post-COVID-19 situation, right? So similarly applies to your cost structure as well. What were you spending in pre-COVID-19? What were you spending on, right? Were you spending, you had a, you probably, your business was very good and you bought a BMW, you bought a couple of Mercedes, right? But post COVID-19, that might not be a good idea, because you're going to have to maintain them. You got to have to, you have a lot of operational expenditure with them. Is that necessary? These are things that you need to consider, right? So that's just an example, right? So you need to break down your cost structure before this, right? And you've got to tie it back to your key partners themselves. What can your key partners do, right, to help you to reduce these costs? That's number one. Number two, what are the key activities? You got to tie it back to your key activities. You have to look at what key activities that I can reduce cost in, or what are the key activities that I should not touch in terms of the cost. And the key resources. If you are heavily driven by manpower, I would not suggest cutting down on manpower, right? I mean, if your business runs on manpower, you cut down, you start, letting go of people, people are going to be very hugely demotivated, and it's just going to be contagious, right? So you need to look at that as well, right? So you need to look at what is most expensive, what is the least expensive, and you got to tie that back in, right? So let's go to the next one, right? Now you got to look at cost models as well. Now, why am I looking at cost models? Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the easiest way that we kind of fall into as business people, in the entrepreneurs, I'll give you an example, right? A post came on my LinkedIn page, right, about the cost of training, online training. Does it change, right? I'm of the opinion it doesn't change. If you're face-to-face training, if the cost is, I'll give you a rough figures. If the cost is RM 5,000 per day of offline, it will still be RM 5,000 per day online, because it is not the tables and chairs that I'm delivering. I'm delivering the value, what you're going to learn. It's going to be the same. You're going to learn here the same amount of value you're going to be learning online as well, right? So it has to be value. I mean, at least to my business, it is value driven, right? As opposed to many businesses that fall into the trap of being cost driven, right? What they do is, the first thing that comes into their mind is that I need to compete in price. If he's giving me if he's giving the market 5,000, I'm going to go 4,500. And then the next guy is going to go, oh, okay, look, I can go 4,000, right? The next guy is going to go 3,500. At the end of the day, you're going to be earning 500 ringgit for the entire day, right? The guy who gets it, is it worth it, right? It's not sometimes, right? So you got to look at that as well, right? So you need to look at whether your cost model is going to be cost driven or value driven, right? And this is very, very critical during this next couple of years. Ladies and gentlemen, that's then you have to look at your fixed costs, your variable costs as well, right? Variable costs in terms of your commodity prices, right? And you have to look at whether, you know, for example, if you're dealing with aluminum, you're dealing with you know, copper, it really depends on the market price, right? So you have to look at whether you have to take that into account of your variable costs as well. Right now, fuel prices are very, very low. How do you leverage on that? You got to look at that, right? So you have to look at this variable cost, because there are always hidden costs that you can actually save, right? So that's one of the things. I still remember a project that I used to run. It was related to a commodity price. We were supposed to buy a copper cable, right? About 13 kilometers copper cable, 13 kilometers copper cable. So the copper prices went down. We asked the project owner to buy it at that point of time. He said, no, we're going to just wait some more. This is not according to the project schedules. We told them, as a consultant, I told them, forget the project schedule, buy it now, right? You don't have to follow a project schedule. Buy it now, it's cheap, right? And they said, no, we're going to have to follow a project schedule. So they waited another 6 months, where the copper prices was double what it was originally. So they had to actually fork out extra money to buy that copper cable. So you have to look at that as well, right? It could cost you a lot of money, right? So next, please. Next slide. Okay, so I am going to stop here. I'm going to stop here, right? Examples are just, you know, we can go through the slides very quickly. Examples is just, you know, how people have actually developed their business model canvas. Now, business model canvas, you need a coach, or you need an external person to sit down and talk to you on the entire thing, so that you can actually, your assumptions can be questions, your thought processes can also be evaluated and whatnot. So entire business model canvas, you need someone else. So that is, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, the business model canvas for you to deploy during the next couple of years, right? So you need to look back at your business altogether. Doctor?
Okay, thank you so much, Prasad, for sharing with us all the 9 segments of the business model canvas. I would like now to open up to questions. Can I have some questions? I've got Dr. Jasrina. She asked whether there is any examples that, I guess she was referring to this particular slide, and as you mentioned, there's no example after this slide, right?
I mean, if you are okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay,
Let's go to the next slide.
Okay, hang on, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so this is an example of how it works, the entire business model canvas. If you go to the next slide. Okay, you go to the next slide. It's not coming up. Okay, so this is again in English, the same thing. Next slide, please. I think there's one on that I did on. Okay, so this is a cake. This is a sample of business model canvas for a cake business, right? So this is something that I came up with, right? And you can look at the value proposition, you can look at the customer relationship, you know, how you're going to get the discount, the third purchase, get 20% off, you know, you look at the customer relationship, free delivery straight to the house, cash on delivery. These are ways that you can actually engage customer relationships, right? Channel, social media, WhatsApp channel, customer database, revenue, different types of cash revenue, food sales agent, walk-in customer, cash on delivery. These are some of the examples of a very small cake cake business, right? Now, in order for you to sit down and you can actually do this if you were to sit down and do it alone, but there will be a lot of hidden assumptions, right? So it'll be good for you to do it a few with a few people so that you can actually brainstorm and get some little bit more of how you say of a more solid business model canvas.
Okay, thank you, Prasad. So we have one question here from CS Tang. His question is, I am preparing to start an SaaS service, a CRM from designed salesperson to salesperson, which is infused with 80-20 principles and spin selling. It is simplified so salesperson to focus engaging the right customer and driving actions to push forward the sales consistently. So I guess the question becomes, which is, okay, not yet the question, still a comment. which it would be beneficial, especially with startups and new salesperson. It helps to get the B2B sales on track with their products. Also be useful for existing business owners to analyze the business and retarget, revise strategy to the right customers. So the question is, any recommendation on how to have a better kickstart financially and how to reach the market wide and fast?
Okay. Well, I'm assuming that this is starting from the from scratch, I suppose, right? The first thing, of course, is that you have to have your vision and mission done first, right? It looks like you have a specific offering, right? It looks like you already have a specific offering. That's good, right? You need to know what is your vision, what is your end goal, right? Because why do I start with an end goal? Is because if you start immediately just trying to implement this, you are going to be all over the place. And I tell you, when you're running a business, things just come left, center, and right, and you just get derailed very, very quickly, right? Because every day you're busy. Busy with what is the problem, right? You're busy. You at the end of the day, even for myself, I'm like back to back with 5 Zoom calls, right? But we gotta make sure that 5 Zoom calls, for some reason, they're always geared towards what our end goal is. If we don't have that, then we're gonna have an issue. We're gonna be busy without any outcome, right? So I suggest for you to sit down and come up with a vision first. Then you sit down and come up with a mission. This seems to be very straightforward, but I tell you, the number of people who do this is very, very, very low. I think Doctor will also agree with me, right? I think everybody does that, right? I mean, like everybody says, hey, do vision, do mission, right? But do anybody do it, right? That's the problem. Nobody does it, right? And the second thing, of course, okay, so once you've done vision and you've done your mission, right? That it doesn't end there, right? You got to figure out, right? How are you going to communicate these two, right? How are you going to communicate these two? This is where the business model canvas comes in, right? You got your vision and you got your mission here, right? You're going to put it up there, right? And you're going to start working on your business model canvas, right? What is your value proposition? You wrote a quite a nice paragraph over there, right? But nowadays, people with all this social media, they don't like to read a lot of wordy things, right? So if you can just do it in your value proposition, what are you specifically offering? What is it going to happen? You know, like in point form, You start from there, value proposition, and then you look at your customer segment. Then you have a clearer picture on how to go about it, doing it fast, right? I can't give you a specific solution because I don't know the details of your business. I could just give you, hey, look, yeah, go ahead and do a WhatsApp viral, right? And you go ahead and do it and it doesn't work. You can come back and say, hey, look, you told me to do WhatsApp viral, it didn't work. Of course it won't work because I don't understand your business specifically, right? But you are the subject matter of you are the subject matter expert of your business. You start there. Start with the vision, start with the mission, then you go to your business model canvas and start going block by block. Then you'll get a clearer understanding of what your business is. Now, what happens then? You've already done that, right? This is when you ask for a third person opinion, right? You got my opinion, you put it on your business model canvas, you got to go out there and get people to criticize it. This is a step that a lot of people forget, right? This is where the false positive usually comes in. You come up with a business model canvas and they're like, oh man, this is not going to fail. No, it's going to fail. You know why? Because I did it myself, right? So that's usually the problem. That's the false positive, right? It's not even overconfident, right? It's just you're convincing yourself that it'll work, right? And for what assumptions? Nobody questioned it. So that's why you take that and you take it to another person, right? And tell him to comment on it and work together, work with him on that, right? Then you'll have a clearer picture on what is the most fastest and market-wide way to reach your customers, right? So if that could answer your question. I can't give you a specific example because I really need to look at the business and you need to look at your operations and what are the value propositions, etc. Right? It'll be unfair, right, for me to just give you an example. Okay.
Okay, Prasad. So I hope CS Tao, you got your answer. All right. So moving on, there's a question from Muhammad Yusni Hashim. How to create a unique value proposition, especially in online business such as dropship agent. The challenges is one that everyone can do online business these days.
Okay. I'll give you just one advice, right? Cari pembangkang. Find an opposition. Find someone who can criticize your business, right? And jangan simpan dalam hati. Don't put it inside your heart and then you go back to your room, duduk dekat bucu katil menangis kan. Don't do that lah, right? When people criticize your business, you have to look at the part that they're criticizing and see whether you can get anything unique from there as well, right? Now, if you look at your competition as well, what are they doing uniquely, right? And you have to look at your at the bigger businesses, what are they doing uniquely, right? And you have to go. What I would say is that in NLP we call this modeling, right? Modeling meaning dalam bahasa biasa ni copycat lah, right? When you're small, you copy a bigger organization. You copy. Well, I'm not saying copy sampai you infringe on their trademark, jangan. Meaning you copy the way that they're doing things. Like for example, diorang buat orang kata apa? Diorang buat this type of marketing, a certain period type of marketing, right? So you can copy the same methods, right? Follow first, right? Once you follow, you get the idea of how they're competing and you get an idea of how the competitors are actually behaving as well, right? So when you get that idea, that's when unique ideas come along. Oh, I can pivot my business like this a little bit. I can pivot my business like this a little bit, right? And I tell you, let's be very frank, to get a unique value proposition, it's not an easy thing. It takes experience. It takes a lot of hard work as well. It takes a lot of observation, right? Don't expect it. You start your business today, tomorrow, by end of this week, you're going to get a unique value proposition. No, right? It takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of observing others. It takes a lot of looking at other people looking at the models that other people use, right? And you learn, right? And then you will find that unique value proposition. It's a continuous learning experience. But consultants like BinaPavo and different consultants have tools that can help you to come up with that idea, to start off with that idea, right? So get one of those as well. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So CS Tang was saying that he likes the fact that you are suggesting, to speak to other people, because having other people's comment is good to help one to think and rethink of the idea, and have a clearer picture of what you want to do. So CS Tang says thank you. Dr. Jasrina says, I agree with constructive criticism. It forces us to reflect. So that's a good one, Prasad, she says. Muhammad Yusni, a comment. Terima kasih atas pencerahan, sangat membantu. So I'd like to ask if there is any other questions. You can quickly post it. We'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes if anybody would like to ask any questions. But in the meantime, Prasad, maybe you can tell the participants, should they want to contact you, how do they proceed to contact you? Go ahead.
Okay, so probably you can go to the last slide on here.
Okay, let me try that. Hang on, yeah.
Let's see if I have it on my last slide. Slide. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, so these are my contact details, right? So if you have any questions, you can contact me here. And again, my biggest advice as far as BMC is concerned, right? You need to find time for you to sit down and think, right? And then you've got to find an opposition, pembangkang, right? As someone to criticize, constructive criticism, right? Obviously, right? And you have to, that's when you will be able to, maneuver your business better. Remember, in this coming days, it's going to be tough. I won't beat around the bush for it. It's going to be tough. Not only for your businesses, it's going to be tough for my businesses as well, right? So what's going to happen is that we have strength in numbers. As long as we are working together with each other, right? Find your strategic partners, find your key resources, keep your key activities, safe. We should be able to weather this tough times, inshallah.
Okay, so thank you, Prasad. I don't see any more questions. So I'd like to thank you, Prasad, so much for your time and your insights and sharing your experience, especially on not just business model canvas, but the business outlook as a whole. So thank you so much for sharing that experience with all of us. I'd like to also thank all the participants who has stayed all the way for more than 1 hour for this session. So thank you for your participation, thank you for your questions, and thank you for your time. So with that, I would like to end the session. I am Leilanie Mohd Nor from BinaPavo, and this has been the Think Big series, brought to you by the L Space, the Learning Space, and initiative by BinaPavo. Thank you and have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.